Good morning, good day. Good morning, good day, everybody. It is early AM, January 14th. And let me preface this by saying, and I'm not saying there's anything nefarious going on. I'm not alleging that there's anybody doing this. It's most likely a technical uh, issue. But sometimes what happens when I'm making a live video is the audio gets chopped up, and as I'll be talking, something I'm saying gets chopped out, and that didn't belong together get juxtaposed, and they don't make much sense. So I want to preface that by making that clear that that's not me. So if it sounds like something didn't belong together and I'm not making sense, that is not me. Sometimes it happens when I make a live video. And again, I'm not saying anybody's responsible for that. I'm not saying there's anything nefarious going on. It's most likely a technical issue. But I wanted to make this video in response to reading an article about Congressman Benny Thompson, who I believe sits on the Homeland Security Committee, suggesting that Senators Hawley and Cruz should be placed onto the no-fly list if they are deemed responsible for the violence at the Capitol. I want to make clear that I think that violence is wrong, that anybody that was involved in attacking police officers, or anybody for that matter, should be held accountable. I believe that vandalism is wrong. I believe trespassing is wrong. And I don't condone what happened at the Capitol at all. That said, I do think it's being embellished. I do think it's being used for a lot of grandstanding. I think it's being used for people to score political points. But again, so, Congressman Benny Thompson is suggesting that Senators Hawley and Cruz should be placed on the no-fly list. And I thought this was very ironic for me to see this in a news article, literally one day after I just got done trying to explain with a Trump supporter. And I want to bring this up. I think you'll understand where I'm going with this. I think that this is the problem with the whole left-right paradigm. And I think that this is in so many ways nexus with all sorts of things going on. I think that, for example, censorship by big tech, I think what you're seeing is really not so much, I'm going to say this, I don't think it's so much big tech that's after people's rights. I mean, one thing I've recognized is that, YouTube has the right to purge whoever it wants from its platform. Twitter has that right. Now, is it necessarily right? I mean, I would disagree with certain forms of censorship, but I think, though, and this is the point that I'm going to get to, is that a lot of what's happening, it's actually, I mean, it's like this is the surface that you see. It's the symptom of a failing political system, a failing financial system. If you actually take time to understand economics and finance, and you can understand what negative real rates mean, when you have a promiscuous monetary policy, when you have a financial system, a worldwide financial system based upon inflation, that you create a paradigm where people are going to fight with each other over pieces of a shrinking economic pie that's being shrunk as a matter of policy. And so I think that what you're seeing, and it's like, it's almost like the system encourages people, rather than trying to de-escalate and go back to something based upon free markets and free enterprise that creates a maximum number of benefits for the maximum number of people. It becomes, I mean, it's like, okay, I look at myself, I stood on principle and refusing to take anything from the taxpayer to go to school as a veteran. Did I help myself? No, I penalized myself. When nobody else stands down, I just put myself at a disadvantage. It's kind of like the same thing. And then when you have a right wing that is really not about liberty, it forces, I think, certain reactions to that. And so bottom line is, objectively, this is what I'm getting at, is you have two sides here, the right and the left, that neither really supports freedom. All they're doing is they're having a fight for control over that power and how to exercise it. But back to what I was saying here. So Congressman Benny Thompson, a Democrat, is talking about putting Senators Hawley and Cruz onto a no-fly list. And like I said, the irony here is literally the day before I'm debating some Trump supporter about Trump. And, I don't criticize Trump from the left. What I see going on between the two major parties is there's like they'll deliberately, try to scramble people's thinking by going after each other for all the wrong reasons. Like, how dare Trump, suggest that there might be problems with these voting machines? And, Trump's not the first person to make such claims. Before Trump, there was Cynthia McKinney, who I have a lot of respect for. Before her, there were the Collier brothers writing a book called Vote Scam. But the point is, so they don't pin him down on things like, for example, he has supported a no-fly list. And, now my perspective is I'm not a fan of Joe Biden, but I recognize that the right wing, if they were to consolidate power and take over everything, that they can pose just as much of a risk and a threat to my liberties as the left wing. And, actually, I was trying to point out to this Trump supporter that maybe from a free market perspective, since Republicans who would otherwise oppose that growth in government, if it were under a Democrat, they tend to support it when it's Trump in office and they gloss over his transgressions. Well, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that, Biden is going to be in there. Maybe Republicans will go back to opposing government. And I said, I'll give you one example. And this is literally the day before I read this article about Congressman Thompson talking about putting Senators Hawley and Cruz on the no-fly list. And keep in mind, this is a Trump supporter I'm talking to, right? I said, you realize back during the debates between Trump and Hillary Clinton, Trump explicitly endorsed not only keeping the no-fly list intact, but morphing it in a no-gun buy list. Now, objectively, that's jettisoning the Second Amendment. And this Trump supporter, and I'll say he's several years older than me, and in fact, I'll just say what the setting was. It was actually truck driving school, okay? And this guy was an instructor. So you have other students sitting around. Of course, they look at like, well, this is the instructor. I'm just the student. Who am I, okay? Look, my first plan wasn't to go drive a truck. I actually have an insurance license, a real estate license. I've have a background in finance, economics. But when you tried to devote yourself to truth, sometimes that's what happens. Is that's just it. You get rejected by all sides here. But so the point is, so I'm like debating this guy. I'm like, and I explain, he Trump not only endorsed keeping the no-fly list intact, but he wanted more from a no-gun buy list. And objectively, you're jettisoning the Second Amendment. That's what that position is. And then he reacts, by saying something to the fact that, well, these are terrorists. You need, there should be a no-fly list. You should put terrorists on there. Of course, up to that point, nobody had mentioned the word terrorist. So then, I have to try to point out, well, wait a minute here. And, this is where I always start with supporters of the no-fly list and things like that. To try, it's like, how do you reach these people? How do you help them see the absurdity of what's going on and how this so undermines constitutional liberties? Because obviously, the purpose of the Constitution was not to protect terrorists. Why was it written at all? If the only people that end up on the receiving end of tyranny are terrorists, okay? But okay, here's what I did then. I said, okay, so you're saying the no-fly list is all about just this war on terror and stopping terrorists. Okay, suppose you have a known terrorist. They're trying to board a flight. Okay, suppose you're working at the airline. Oh, sorry, Mr. Terrorist, you can't board the plane today. We're not going to let you fly because you're a terrorist. And that's what I did, thinking, well, maybe he could see the absurdity of this. Of course, he doesn't. And I try to point out, an actual terrorist you can charge with the crime, you can prosecute. I mean, there's no reason not to give them due process. If you know they're a terrorist and you have the evidence, why fear due process? But you charge them with the crime, you prosecute them, you imprison them, and guess what? They won't be able to fly. You don't tell a known terrorist, you can't fly today. And I'm trying to point out to this guy that that's how, why do you think that political dissidents, tax delinquents have ended up on this no-fly list? That it's totally unconstitutional to strip people of these particular rights, for example, the right to travel, to impose travel restrictions on people absent due process like this. Again, there's a legal framework to deprive people of their right to travel if they are a terrorist. It's called prosecuting them. You give them due process. And it's like everything I just said there, which I try to explain to him, he can't get it at all. A Trump supporter, right? And that's where we are as a people, that people lack a basic understanding of the Constitution and of the consequences of these I think a good way to explain it is I understand that it's been piecemeal, that we've slowly constructed a totalitarian system, and it's been at such a pace where it's been almost imperceptible to people. But so he couldn't get it. And then when I point out that what this is objectively is it's imposing travel restrictions on people, absent due process, then his retort was, well, people can drive. And at that point, like, our debate ended and he went on to doing his thing or whatever, and it didn't get to finish up. But, it's amazing what people can come up with to rationalize the loss of our basic rights, our basic human rights. I mean, okay, so, by that logic, a terrorist shouldn't have a driver's license or be driving either. So if somebody is going to be put on a no-fly list because they're a terrorist, why can they get a driver's license to drive? So what kind of response is that to tell me, don't worry about a no-fly list because, well, you can always drive, but the only people that get put on the no-fly list are ipso facto terrorists because they're on that list? Okay, how much sense does that make? And then what happens when it does become a no driver's license, a no driving list? A terrorist shouldn't be able to shop either. So why not have a no shopping list or something for every particular right? Oh, you can walk. You can walk places. See, that's just it. It always starts very subtle. Oh, it's just a no-fly list. And so these moves towards a totalitarian system become, like I said, imperceptible to many people, to the point that people go along with it, they endorse it, and then now what do you have? You have a Democrat, and don't forget that no-fly list was concocted under Bush, a Republican. Where's the difference in the parties? But now you have a Democrat talking about putting Senators Hawley and Cruz on a no-fly list. And see, that's just it, that Donald Trump, if he were on the side of liberty, not only would he not have agreed with Hillary Clinton when it came to morphing the no-fly list into a no-gun-buy list, but he would have right then and there during the debate said he wanted to jettison the no-fly list altogether because there's no constitutional basis to have it. There's no reason to have a no-fly list. And then now let's not forget, it's Trump who has advocated red flag laws. And red flag laws are not about our safety or security. That's about jettisoning the Second Amendment as well. And now that, it creates a complete false sense of security. Because if somebody is a violent person or somebody makes a threat against somebody, that is already illegal. You can go arrest that person. A red flag law meant to confiscate firearms, the only reason you would use red flag laws is because you don't have evidence that somebody is really a threat. And how much sense does that make if somebody really is a threat? Oh, we're going to arrest your guns today. Since you don't have evidence the person is a threat, okay, we're going to just take away your firearms. Well, okay, if the person is a threat, how much sense does that make? So we think you're a threat, so we're going to arrest your firearms. Not you, your firearms. Again, what that is that's a detour around arresting the person because they don't have evidence the person So again, all these they're incremental encroachments upon our constitutional liberties. And I just say, let's get back to the Constitution. Let's get back to our liberties. I don't want to use the government to go after. I wouldn't say put left wingers on the no-fly list. And obviously, I think that's wrong to put Senators Hawley and Cruz on a no-fly list. I don't think it should exist. And it would be nice if maybe Republicans would wake up and realize what a bad idea no-fly list is to begin with. So that's what I wanted to say.